Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
It's time once again for everybody to come aboard that Green Screens Media train. Recording live from somewhere, this is One and Done, your fast break for everything college hoops. On tonight's show, part 2 of our incoming recruiting class series, part 2 of not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 parts we're going to hit on, featuring tonight teams from the middle America, right in the middle, smack dab in the country. Of course, we're also going to hit on some big-time news and notes from the past week. And if you've been hanging out with us for the last 2.5, 3 weeks or so, you'll notice a change. On set today, he is back. Eric the Blue, the Baron of Bread. Follow that man on Twitter, at FantasyNav. Eric Romoff. What's happening?
What's going on, fellas? Did I miss anything while I was out of these Twitter streets for a few weeks? Of course I did. Shows. It's been super busy in college basketball. A ton of stuff to cover. It seems like we talked about this a lot last year. Seems like a lot of the guys that stuck their toe in the draft waters have mostly decided to come right back to the warm embrace of college basketball for another season. So getting a little bit more information like that leaking out. Rosters are becoming clearer at this time of the season, so we're getting a better picture of how these teams will actually come together. And like always, we are still queuing up coaching interviews left and right. We got Coach Lavin on deck. We got the Todd father, Coach Kowalczyk, on our radar. So definitely make sure you're staying locked here to hear the insights from those coaches directly.
The Todd father, trying to get these guys back. He was one of the OGs that we had on the show back in the Dizzy. And, of course, the man that we're all here to see, you know him and you love him as the captain of the Green Screens Media ship, El Capitan himself. Follow him on Twitter, at MCHolland34. He is the OG Money Mike, Mr. Mike Holland. What it do, baby?
There's the excitement, the aura of the 3-man box again, so I'm sure the viewers are just stoked, man. You know, there's just something that pops with that blue screen over there, man. So I'm gonna have trouble, concentrating on what we're doing tonight. But it's good to have him back. And yeah, man, I'm just excited that we're inching closer and closer to knowing what these final rosters are gonna look like. Updated the big board the other day on drroto.com. That's our transfer board that features 300 players as well as some news and notes as the portal season wraps up. The deadline did hit a few weeks ago, but with grad transfers and still guys that are ready to make their decision pretty soon here, there's still a lot of moving parts. But I got to ask you guys, what are your thoughts about the Heat and Nuggets? Who are you taking, Jay?
Nuggets in 5.
Eric?
Got it. Can't get off of the Nuggets in 5. What you got, Mr. Eric the Blue?
I'm gonna stick with the underdog story and buy into the conspiracy theory that Jimmy Butler is the long-lost offspring of Michael Jordan. Heat in 7. Heat culture, baby.
Oh, 7. 8 seed to win in 7. Mike, you're going to break the tie here. Who do you got?
Give me some Nuggets in 6.
Look at you guys making logical choices. Come on.
Yeah. Well, me and Mike both.
We told the audience that you were contrarian, so they probably already knew your pick before you made it.
Yeah,
Team
they
chaos.
know. Yeah, love it. Why not? Why not? It's what we're about here on One and Done. And we're also about breaking down some high school recruiting, some incoming recruiting classes. We've been hitting you with this transfer portal news lately, and we will talk about rosters on the whole here as we break these down. But like I said at the open, this is part 2 of our 4-part series of talking about these incoming freshman recruiting classes. So, Mike, let's start in the Big Ten, my favorite conference. Sorry. Michigan State Spartans, the only team, by the way, to make it to the second weekend out of all those teams in the Big Ten last year. And their recruiting class, of course, it's Tom Izzo, so nobody's surprised. But they have the number 4 ranked class on 24/7 composite rankings. Tell us a little bit about this Michigan State recruiting class, Mike, and what it's going to do for their chances in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I love this class. It starts with the big man, Xavier Booker. He's 6'10", 205 pounds. He's a late riser. He's a 5-star. He's the 13th overall player there on the 24/7 composite. Love using that because it takes kind of all the major recruiting sites and puts it all together for that composite number. But he's a great shooter for his size. He's got really nice handles. But to be fair, I mean, he's an awesome passer, and that might be the best part about his game. He's going to need to continue to put on weight. I mean, look at 6'10", 205, right? That's pretty slight. But I expect him to be a major impact on both sides of the ball. Jeremy Fears is a 4-star point guard. He's 6', 180. He's the number 30 overall player on the 24/7 composite. I mean, he's an explosive playmaker and also smaller in stature, but when you pop on the highlights and he'll dunk on you. He's going to have to kind of clean up his decision-making. That's going to be huge for Izzo, right? Like we know Tom Izzo teams are very under control. But he is a natural point guard, so expect with some of that coaching up by midseason, figure he'll be fine there. Coen Carr, absolute athlete here, 6'7", 200 pounds. He's number 31 overall. He is a 4-star composite. Man, I mean, he's not really getting any of the attention with Fears and especially Booker kind of leading this class. But, he won the high school all-star game dunk contest. If you put on the highlights of that, he put on some really impressive dunks. And he plays really good defense. He's a high motor, high energy guy. Does that sound like someone familiar? The old Draymond Green. Not saying he's going to be Draymond, but man, he's got elite athleticism to go with that defensive motor. And then Gary Normand, he's a small forward. He's a 4-star, 6'6", 180. He's number 118 overall. So the guy that's probably going to go even more overlooked here. But like Booker, he's a late riser. He's lacking some strength here, but he's another high motor guy like Coen Carr. He's not an elite level athlete, but he's a good athlete. It's more of a project, right? It may take a few years in the system to really get it going. So this 4-man class has a chance to be very, very special. Booker could be a one and done type if he really gets it done. So I'm looking forward to see Izzo and what he can do with this. These guys coming in. Eric, what are your thoughts with kind of how the whole roster is kind of shaking out with Michigan State?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think, right? Like we look back to that Sweet 16 run last year, and there certainly wasn't the star power from a recruiting perspective on that roster. And don't look now. Like Izzo's already getting back Tyson Walker. He's already getting back Malik Hall. It's almost 25 points a game. AJ Hogarth, Jaden Akins are still up in the air. So there's a world where the core of that Sweet 16 team that pushed K-State to the brink is back. And then you add on top of it a top 5, the number 4 recruiting class in the country. And all of a sudden, Izzo might be looking at one of his most talented rosters maybe ever, certainly in quite some time. And the thing that I like about it most, you talk about Booker sitting at number 13 overall. Like he is the type of prospect that has that game-breaking ability, right? He can take over a game with his skill set, and that was very much so what hindered them in that March Madness run last year, right? They were trying to go punch for punch with K-State, but ultimately they didn't have anybody that just had the raw skill set to rise up to the occasion. And there are several guys, Booker included in this class, that I think very much so can answer that call.
Some people like to say, they like to list out the months, right, and say January, February, Izzo, April, May. I like to say January, February, Izzo. He gets it done in March, and he gets it done in recruiting. He knows the types of players that fit into a system, but these are not just any, just some Jags. These are 3 top 31 guys in the entire country. And like y'all hinted at, making the Sweet 16 last season as a 7 seed, he hasn't lost his touch. And when he has this much talent on the roster, the Big Ten's going to run through East Lansing, even if Zach Edey takes his name out of the NBA draft and returns to Purdue. I wanted to touch on Carr real quick before I moved on. I I do think Carr compares to Draymond in a sense that he'll end up doing a little bit of everything to help the team win. Like, I don't know that he's going to get 16 points a night. I don't know that he's going to get 14 boards a night. But he's going to be that guy for Michigan State that just does it all. Like, the do it all, everything, does different jobs on different nights. So Carr is somebody that I'm really intrigued to watch in terms of his development up in East Lansing. Surprise, surprise. Izzo does it again. Yeah. Again,
what a
though,
guy.
it's the Big Ten, though, right? Like, it's the Big Ten. It's Izzo and who, coaching-wise? I mean, like,
your boy Matt Painter.
Right, and Painter can do it. Painter's done it consistently in the regular season a little bit. But again, like, who's done it in the tournament in the Big Ten besides Izzo? Not a damn soul. So we'll see how it goes. Let's move on now. Let's move on down south a little bit to Big 12 country, to the number 12 team in the 24/7 composite rankings. Coach Scott Drew and those Baylor Bears, Mike. You know, we've been critical of Scott Drew and how he handles his business sometimes, but there's no doubt that he can coach, and there is absolutely no doubt that he can recruit either.
No, there's not. And I know what Eric's thinking right now. Mike's a Baylor Bears.
Mike's Baylor Bears.
I'll go ahead and go Eminem style and take it off of his plate. Papa Doc style. But, yeah, I mean, it's a three-man recruiting class. It's going to be a very important class. Jacoby Walter, shooting guard, a 5-star. He's 6'5", 180 pounds. He's the number 9 overall player on that 24/7 composite rating. I mean, he possesses a great shooting touch. Someone that is really going to need to score for them. He can push the break. He's a good defender. He's a true shooting guard, especially with that size, 6'5", 180. You know, with him, you got Yves Missi. Love pronouncing these these international guys. He's from Cameroon. He's a 4-star center. He's 6'10", 210 pounds. Gonna have to put on a little bit of weight, but he's number 35 overall on that composite. And great shot blocker, rim finisher. He's got a great second bounce if you watch his film. He's pretty mobile for his size. Obviously, he has that great second bounce. He's able to switch, so real athletic. And then Miro Little, he's a point guard. He's a 4-star. He's 6'4", 185 pounds, number 41 overall. So the 3 top 50 guys here. He's another international player. This guy's constantly attacking, stuffing the stat sheet. Kind of read about him, and it's like, man, this guy's kind of like a Russell Westbrook-like type player where he's just getting after it on both ends, and just a real competitor here. So, with Little, he should be in the media presence as far as like a primary ball handler, and they're going to need some ball handlers, Eric, man. What are your thoughts on the rest of the squad that potentially could be coming back, and some of the guys that we know that are coming back?
I mean, they're going to need some ball handlers to say the least, right? Like, Coach Drew really built this team around that big 3 in the backcourt, and they are all gone, right? Flagler and George are off to the draft. LJ Cryer considered the draft. He's decided to return back to college basketball, but will be suiting up for U of H next season. So now you're looking at it, the core of that team is very much so gone, and there's still uncertainty in the front court, right? Jalen Bridges is a question mark. JTT, not Jonathan Taylor Thomas, is still a question mark, right? So a lot of these pieces from that Baylor team last year are best case scenario in flux. I mean, Langston Love is kicking around, right? He's done a little bit for the Bears and for Coach Drew. So, he all of a sudden is the KG veteran on this team. And, here we are about 2 months into the offseason. And while this is a damn fine recruiting class, I mean, the Bears still have more questions than answers, in my opinion.
Definitely. As much as it pains me to say this, I just feel like Scott Drew is going to find a way to get this done. Like, he's a good coach.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt about it. We talk about the portal a little bit. They did get VCU shooting guard Jaden Nunn, who averaged a little over 9 points a game last season. So not a lot there. But, yeah, I mean, Walter should just slot right in and play that Keontae George role. I don't know if he's going to play it as good as George did immediately. It's going to take a little bit of time. But yeah, I mean, when you look at this Baylor roster, like you mentioned Langston Love, Eric, that's, supposed to be back and will be a contributor for them most likely. D'Antoine Grimes is somebody for me who didn't play last season after being a second team JUCO All-American a couple seasons ago. That's somebody to watch on this Baylor roster as some of these younger guys sort of get their feet underneath them. But it's going to be interesting to watch him put this together, to watch Drew put this together as they get into Big 12 play, because the Big 12 slows down for no one. Nope. And it will continue to be the most dominant and toughest conference in the country, night in and night out, especially with the additions popping in now. So, will I be super sad if Baylor just happens to have a down year? Probably not, because I'm a hater. But, it is what it is. But a solid recruiting class here for Scott Drew and the Baylor Bears for sure. All right, we hit on the Michigan State recruiting class. We hit on the Baylor Bears recruiting class. Smack in the middle of that map of this country. Let us know what you think about those two classes. Let us know if you think Michigan State is the contender right now or is the team to beat in the Big Ten. Let us know if you think Baylor is going to be able to overcome some of this roster uncertainty. Is Scott Drew going to be able to coach his way out of this one? We shall see. But make sure you like and subscribe as well. Hit that like button. Bam, smash the subscribe button with the elbow off the top rope. Hadn't done this one with Eric in studio in a while, but now he's here. He's got to see it. Yeah. Smash those like and subscribe buttons. We appreciate y'all hanging around with us. Make sure you leave a comment. Just say, hey. Say, what's up? Let us know you're here. Leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you, just to let us know that you're hanging out with us. All right, man, we hit a couple recruiting classes. Now, why don't we touch on 5 more freshmen that we feel like will be impactful right in the middle of this map? Starting off, Mike, with somebody that in early contention for some, all-name competition here. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. I've been waiting to say this name all show, and it's 17 minutes in. So we'll go with Jizzle James, the point guard, a 4-star. Man, just love that name. He's 6'1", 180 pounds, the 58th overall player on that composite. He's committed to Cincinnati, and man, looking up, this kid's profile, and he's a former Colts running back Edgerrin James' son. So. Yes, he is Edgerrin James Jr., but goes by Jizzle James, which is, I don't know how that's not first team, Jay. So
for Jizzle.
Oh my goodness.
This definitely. Hey, I'm just learning about this guy, so give me some time to think about it a little bit, okay? It won't be long. And we'll be talking about Jizzle James. I'll just be dropping it in the conversation.
There you go. So James is described as he's a Swiss Army knife, a really, really good defensive player. He's continuing to improve offensively. So, Cincinnati, we talked about moving over to the Big 12, and they've added some punch. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're very competitive in the Big 12 this year, just like pretty much every team in the Big 12. Sliding down next year on our list here is Dailey. He's a power forward. He's a 4-star, 6'7", 216 pounds, the number 52 overall player on the 24/7 composite. He's committed to Oklahoma State. And first thing that jumps out is the NBA type body. We talked about some of the Michigan State guys needing to put on some weight. Well, this kid already has that size and strength. He's very versatile on the defensive side. He comes from a basketball family. He can create from the forward position, which is a bonus in the college ranks. We see that a lot in the NBA ranks, is being able to create, out of the post and at the perimeter there for bigs. And yeah, this is a guy that can make some things happen here for Oklahoma State. Scotty Middleton, he is a small forward, a 4-star. He's 6'6", 180 pounds. He's a 48th overall player on that composite. He's committed to The Ohio State. First thing that jumps out when you see this kid, long arms, very athletic, and he loves to play defense. He cares about winning. That's like everything that you read about him. He says that he would rather score 0 points and his team win. That is a guy that you want on your team, but he's just as skilled offensively, so he can go out and get you 20. I'm not saying he's going to come into Ohio State and average 20, but that's just the thing. He's willing to do whatever it takes to win. Omaha Biliew, I don't know, him and Jizzle James, man, making a run for that first team, at least a freshman all-name.
Absolutely.
Team. He's a power forward, a 5-star. He's 6'8", 210 pounds, the number 11 overall player on that 24/7 composite. And he's committed to Iowa State, one of the highest-rated recruits in program history, staying home, McDonald's All-American. He's a game changer defensively with his shot blocking. He had offers to go to the G League. I mean, this kid, man, like he is an explosive athlete, really fun to watch. Expecting him to make a huge impact there for Iowa State, which is in the Big 12. So ho-hum, another big get in the Big 12. And last but not least here, Mackenzie Mgbako. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago. He's a power forward, 5-star, was committed to Duke, ends up signing with Indiana. He's 6'8", 210 pounds, number 8 overall player on the composite. And he's just a really great player offensively, but he's got some versatility, on both ends. So, kind of the theme of a lot of freshmen, right? Needs to put on a little bit of weight at 210 at 6'8". Looks a little bit lanky there, but, over time you should be able to fill out that body, Eric. Any thoughts on either one of these guys and, who you think makes a huge impact?
I mean, it's got to be Mgbako, right? Like, the decommit from Duke, switching over to Indiana here. And, Mike Woodson is having to fill one of the biggest gaps in all of the rosters in college basketball with TJD leaving, but also guys like Jalen Hood-Schifino out the door. And, Mgbako is looking a little lean and mean, right? 210 on a 6'8" frame. Isn't exactly a whole lot of weight, but young man, he should be able to bulk up. And even if he doesn't, like his game is versatile enough to where I think, especially over the course of the season, we're probably going to see him get more and more run and play more and more of a role, right? Like really solid on the defensive side. He's 6'8", so he's not huge, but he rebounds well enough for his size. He can shoot from range. He's good off the pick and pop. He can get out of screens and create his own shot. So there's just a lot of different ways that Coach Woodson can use him. And, another guy, you're not ranked that high in 24/7 unless you're a McDonald's All-American. And he's going to be going out there with a former McDonald's All-American, Cadaeu Ware, that Indiana picked up by way of the transfer portal. And I think some combination of these two guys is Coach Woodson's plan for filling the void for TJD. If I had to guess, Cadaeu Ware is probably plan A, but if you're talking about a contingency plan, Mackenzie Mgbako is a fantastic one as far as incoming freshmen are concerned.
Looking at these, I mean, there's 3 guys on here. Eric, you were asking me in the pre-show if Mgbako was all named, and I sort of poo-pooed it, but then I'm looking at this now. Jizzle James, Omaha Biliew, Mackenzie Mgbako. I mean, like, this is
if he wasn't on this slide with Biliew and Jizzle James, he's absolutely in the conversation. It's just he's in the wrong class.
I'm just here to apologize to you for just shunning it, so quickly when you asked me earlier, because he's definitely up there. But so is his game. And the guy that I want to talk about here isn't any of those 3. It's Scotty Middleton, who's like the most basic ass name of the 5. Boy. But the deal is like, we could have been talking about the Ohio State class tonight in this breakdown in the middle of this country, right? Wanted to, not focus too much on the Big Ten, mostly because Mike knew I would refuse to. But but also, Ohio State did have, top 10 class 24/7, right? But Middleton is super, super talented. Also have Tayson Chapman coming in, Devin Royal, 4-star guys in the top 50 composite rankings. Like, Middleton is a part of a super talented class here. Like I said, Ohio State's definitely going to have a say in the Big Ten, especially if these freshmen can all figure it out. It's not a guarantee. Like, as much as I like to push down the Big Ten, there is some competition. There are some good big men in this conference. And, freshmen don't always just show up and show out immediately. But got to like Scotty Middleton here for Ohio State. Yo, hit me.
I got to ask you, man, are they going to get 400 teams in again this year?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the Big Ten will probably get 572 teams into the Big Dance this year. So, Ohio State will probably be one of them, to be honest. But it's just, again, like I said earlier, and I'm pretty sure that's right, isn't it? That Michigan State was the only Big Ten team to make it to weekend 2 last year after getting in. What did they get in?
And
8?
I think we called it too because we liked them over Marquette.
We did call it, and it's just I don't know if it happens again this year. I'm boycotting Big Ten basketball. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. No, you're right. I won't. But I'm definitely a fan of the Pac-12, which is what we're going to hit on in a little bit, including a big name committing out there. But before we get to that, I want to remind you guys and girls, if you're watching, to make sure you smash those like and subscribe buttons. Show us some love. Let us know what you're thinking about these recruiting classes. Just say what's up in the chat. We want to flash your name up there just to say hi. Drop something in the chat. Drop a little shaka emoji if you want to. Just do whatever you got to do. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. We know you're watching. We see you out there in the lobby. We appreciate you for checking in with us tonight. 5 Impact freshmen there right in the middle of this country. Let's move on out west where we spent some time last show. The number 3, right, Mike? Number 3 in the top 300 on the big board over at drroto.com, which you can still see and will always be able to see for free over on that fine website. Caleb Love has found a home out west, going to Arizona. Not a school, Mike, that we originally thought was going to be in the mix for Caleb Love. There are a few reasons why we didn't necessarily think that, but damn, this is an absolutely potent lineup out there for Arizona.
Hey Jay, remember when Arizona was like one of the losers of the portal in the offseason about all of like a week ago?
Like 10 days ago.
Yeah. And then Pepperidge remembers.
Yeah, and then you get Keyshawn Johnson and Caleb Love to commit. And then now all of a sudden Rothstein's got him as a top 5 team. I don't know if I'm that high, but I mean top 10 for sure. I mean, look at this projected lineup. Jaden Bradley, who, if it wasn't for the ridiculousness of the Alabama squad that had 12 guys that played like 9 minutes each, could really showed out. This is a wide open system that he can fit in. You slot in Love at the 2 guard, Pelé Larson. I think that backcourt dynamic. We talked about it last show, Jay, how it kind of this is kind of a really good fit. We didn't know Arizona was going to be in it until last week when it was between Gonzaga, Texas, and Arizona is what was being reported. And you look at that backcourt, and Larson's not somebody that needs a ton of shots to affect the game. He's not really that type of player. Jaden Bradley can be a pass first type guy. And a second option in the backcourt. Keyshawn Johnson is not Tabellis. He's not going to require, you don't require or need 20 shots a game for you to be successful. And then Ballo's not a usage-oriented big. So this is like almost I would say this is like a perfect type storm for Caleb Love. I think this fits perfectly. He's in a wide open system with Tommy Lloyd. He's okay. Look, we talked about Courtney Ramey. Look, at one point they were considered one of the favorites, even as he kind of got into the tournament. I think you picked them up to go all the way, Jay. And yeah, it's the tournament. Things happen, right? So loaded Pac-12 guys. I mean, now you look at it, Arizona, USC is going to be big time. Cal, I think, is going to pack a punch. UCLA is going to be really good. So, Eric, man, this is going to be a lot of fun. I love the fit here, man. Am I being too bullish on this? Tell me what's up.
I mean, I don't think so, right? I'll start with your last point that the Pac-12 is an entirely different league now, right? Like still super powerful, like national title contenders at the top, but all of a sudden teams, 3 through 6 are looking real salty too, right? So Pac-12 basketball is going to be a blast to watch. And, talking about Arizona State, you talk about the guys on this roster, a lot of usage to be sopped up by a guy like Caleb Love, right? So, it definitely feels like the things that he wants to do, there's room for him to do it in Arizona. And I also think that it kind of represents almost like a paradigm shift, right? Tommy Lloyd has been playing a lot of an inside-out game since he got to Arizona. You mentioned Tabellis needing, 20 attempts per game in order for the offense to work. And now all of a sudden Love comes in, gives him a lethal scorer who's clearly not afraid to pull the trigger, right? He will shoot his way out of any problem that life presents him. And I think this Arizona team is going to be way more balanced than they were last year, right? Last year seemed like they could kind of get a little one-dimensional, seemed like they could kind of be game planned for and have that offense sort of minimized by scheming the big men out to the perimeter. And at least based on the pieces that they've added to their roster, I don't think that's going to be as easy to do, or at least the adjustment is far clearer with a scorer as prolific as Love on the roster now.
Hey, let me ask you guys this. I want to get y'all's opinion on this. If I told you that Tommy Lloyd had Bradley, Love, and Larson, would you take it over Kerr Kriisa, Ramey, and at some points last year it was Larson or Henderson? I mean, Jay,
yeah, I would.
That's a no for me. Yeah, I think you guys know I'm not as high on Caleb Love as many people are.
Were you as high on Courtney Ramey, though?
I don't think it matters in this instance because I'm going to be honest. I don't really think that the switching in and out of Love for the usage of Tubelis and I don't think it makes this Arizona team any better in the long run. Eric, I want to hear your thoughts first because I'm going to go on my little rant here in a little bit. But I wanted to hear what you had to say about that question Mike just asked.
Yeah, I think you immediately keyed in on the right players, right? Like specifically the idea of swapping out Ramey for Love. Like you get guys that love to have the ball in their hands, pun intended, right? But I do think that Caleb Love is a more effective scorer, and I do think that when he gets hot, he can impact the game in more ways than Ramey did for this Arizona team. So I do think there's a direct upgrade there from a player-to-player standpoint, but also from a game plan standpoint, right? Like the way that you can deploy Caleb Love is a vastly different and more various way than the way that you could deploy some of those guards, or specifically the issue that I had with Arizona last year was really trying to run everything through the big men down low, right? Like they got real one-dimensional. It was easy to scheme them out. And I don't think that Achilles heel will be as apparent, right? So, side by side, both really solid rosters, but I do think that it gives Coach Lloyd more versatility. And I do like Love standing right next to Courtney Ramey, in terms of that kind of ball hog role in the offense.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong here, man. But I also look at this offense and I think about the way that Kerr Kriisa struggled last year to shoot the ball, and I don't necessarily think it's just because he forgot how to shoot. I just don't think that it was set up well. I think when you bring up the offense running, in an inside outside and running through the post a lot, like they're going to do that again this year quite a bit. And I don't think that necessarily – if Caleb Love is, on his nights where he's 3 for 13 from the field and, 1 for 8 from 3, like that's not going to help this team. I don't know, man. Like I have been off of Caleb Love for a while. I was not a fan of the thought of him coming to Texas. Is he side by side a better basketball player than Courtney Ramey? Yeah, I think he is, but I don't necessarily think that putting Caleb Love onto this Arizona roster just boosts them to the moon here. I think it's a lot that has to do with the rest of this roster, and that's what I wanted to talk about here. My point about Caleb Love joining this team. I do think because of the talent that's going to be around him and the coaching that he's going to get, he's going to be able to play a little bit more under control and pick and choose the times that he needs to take over these games. Okay. I don't think he's going to have to just carry the load night in and night out and be that usage-oriented guard that he's had the reputation for being. I think there will be nights where he'll be able to sit back and just do less, which is in my mind, what he's heard from NBA scouts is do less. Do more things really, really well instead of trying to do a few things
less
great.
Is more.
And I think that's where Caleb Love can benefit from going to Arizona here and really boost his stock. Play more team basketball. learn when to take a back seat to some other guys with a lot of talent. I don't know, man. Like, I'm just not as sold on Love. I think he's as bad of a player as we saw him last year. And even though his stats were okay when you look at the stat sheet, but it's because he punted up so many damn shots every single night. I mean, he kind of had to. And that could be a testament to Hubert Davis, somebody else that I'm not high on at all either. I'm not ready to crown him at all in North Carolina. I know he had that run, but, maybe we look at this next season and Tommy Lloyd just absolutely turns Caleb Love's game back around. But I don't know, man. Like, I've got to see it to believe it. But this is going to be a really good Arizona team no matter what. Mike, thanks so much for bringing up the fact that I picked Arizona to win it all. Really appreciate that. But hold on, before we move on out of this discussion, we're talking about all these Pac-12 teams. We're just gonna leave out Oregon, my guy Jackson Shellstad. We're just leaving them out. Like, we can't.
That's your boy. That's your boy, man.
And not talk Oregon Ducks basketball, baby. Do not sleep on Oregon this year. And I'm also, of course, going to be watching.
Hey, one last point.
Cal, gonna get that Cal. Got to get my Madsen things in. Yeah, it's once a show. All right, Mike, what you got?
One last point that just listening to you talk about it, I think, yes, it does mean that Arizona has one of the kind of like North Carolina last year, right? It feels like they have one of the lowest floors and one of the highest ceilings as far as expectation. Because it would not surprise me if Love's gonna have to score, guys, for this team to be pretty good. But I think if he's averaging 14 and he can up those assists and shoot better from three, I think that helps Arizona to be a top 5, top 10 team. If he's going to struggle and not create, it could be. We could be looking back and be like, damn, like we had Arizona. Everybody had Arizona in the top 10 to start the season. Like, what's going on? So, but you trust in Tommy Lloyd more than you do Hubert Davis. So that was my
absolutely. That's a good point. All right, no more Caleb Love talk tonight. I'm going to go off the rails.
That might be it until we talk about Pac-12 preview.
Well, and that's okay. But again, like not knocking the guy's talent. Again, I agree with you, Eric. You put him next to Courtney Ramey in a vacuum, and I'm taking Caleb Love in terms of the overall talent. I got to see it, man. Like, last year was a big disappointment for me, and I'm ready to put all of that blame on Hubert Davis. I'm ready to do it, but I trust me, but I've got to see it out of Love this year, and I'm rooting for him out there in the Pac-12, no matter how hard I've come down on him. I really hope he does well, because this could be another team out west to pay a ton of attention to. Those late night viewing parties, we're going to have them. You know it, baby. What do you guys think about Caleb Love in the chat? Let us know. Am I underselling this cat? Am I totally off base here? Because I do think that we could be the ceiling for Caleb Love is we're talking about him being a first-round pick again after this season. I really think that's the ceiling. If it all goes right, if he does less when he's supposed to, or when he needs to, I should say. But we'll see. All right, let's move on now to some old returners. Guys, pulling our names back out of the NBA draft. Some big names to mention here. Ryan Kalkbrenner, of course, heading back to Creighton, the big old center, returning to be a Blue Jay again. Chennai Room from Auburn. Lamont Butler and Jaden Ledee from San Diego State. Just spin the wheel, right? Everybody's going to play 18 minutes and do what they need to do. We got to think that Butler and Ledee coming back are really going to help that Aztecs team. Matthew Morrell going back to Ole Miss, of course, big get there for Chris Beard to get him to stick around, one of their top 2 leading scorers last year returning. Mark Sears, the guard from Alabama, coming back, and Eric Gaines going back to UAB. So, Mike, hit me with your thoughts on a couple of these guys returning.
Well, I think the biggest news, I don't know if I can say biggest news because all of these are huge. Like today was like a whirlwind, guys. We did the show yesterday. We'd have missed out on a ton of news. But Ryan Kalkbrenner coming back from Creighton is massive. I mean, this vaults them back into the national conversation. Look, you already had Baylor Shireman. You got Stephen Ashworth from the transfer portal, who I think is a better fit, even though Ryan Nimhart is our number 2 player on the transfer board and should challenge for an All-American status with Gonzaga. You lose Arthur Kaluma, which was kind of a surprise. But you have some other pieces coming in, and he's the guy that makes this thing work on the defensive side. So, I'm looking for Kalkbrenner to have a huge season. We talk about it all the time, right? It's kind of a tough place, right, for these types of bigs going to the NBA. I feel like coming back, he can, kind of capitalize maybe on some of that NIL opportunity. And now that you have two of those big five kind of headed out, maybe get a little more shine there. So, I look at Kalkbrenner being a significant impact. And then Butler and Ledee, right? Like, these guys just played for the national championship. I don't know. I felt like there were a lot of Cinderella runs last year. You just don't know. It's college basketball. But for these two guys to come back on a roster that's losing, Matt Bradley, like we just talked about, Keshad Johnson headed over to Arizona, Nathan Mensah, that shot blocker, even though you're getting Jay Powell coming in from Campbell. Adam Seiko was a shining spotlight off the bench for them. It was just a very seasoned team. So I really like the news here of Butler and Ledee coming back. Jay joked around at the beginning, San Diego State likes to run, kind of like an Alabama type where you just play a bunch of guys. But it feels like these two guys right here, these guys are going to be the ones that actually challenge to try to break that 30-minute mark. So we'll see Coach Brian Dutcher how he deploys his roster and what other moves are going to be made here. But Eric, man, get us some thoughts, man. I know you're a big fan of Johni Broome, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like, right? Last year in his first season for Auburn, 14.5 points, 8.5 boards, 2.5 blocks in only 26 or so minutes per game, right? So just completely stuffed the stat sheet in limited run. We roll the clock back to this time last year. Johni Broome was one of the huge transfer portal ads for Bruce Pearl and this Auburn squad, and now you continue to walk down the timeline here. Auburn kind of squeaked their way into the March Madness tournament last year. Now into the offseason, they're losing a ton of guys both to the portal and to graduation, right? So Johni Broome is someone that is really going to have to step in and really expand his role in this offense, right? Can he continue to contribute at the same level when his minutes push into the 30s, beyond the 30s, right? His defense, it impacts the game in a significant way. So both sides of the court, he is making his presence felt. And, if he takes even an incremental step forward on the offensive side, he's really going to be the key to another potential tournament bid for Auburn. And then I'll stick here with the SEC. Mark Sears, is another body for Nate Oates and Alabama, right? Is definitely a solid boost in their backcourt, but I mean they still have a ton of questions to answer in their front court, right? So Sears, Quinterly, these are guys that played significant roles for them last season. Sears now coming back, Quinterly still kind of up in the air, but ultimately, the backcourt depth is nice to have, but this roster is nowhere near completion until they start to get some more bigs in there. So sure, Nate Oates is happy to have him back. I'm sure the Alabama faithful are happy to have him back. But, it almost feels like they would much rather see a big splashy addition through the portal or someone returning in their front court than in their back court.
Yeah, no Bediako, no Brandon Miller, no Noah Clowney. Like, it's like, yeah. Who's gonna play in the front court? It's gonna be pretty wild. Jay, what you got?
Alabama's definitely glad to see Sears coming back. Probably about as much as Ole Miss is excited that Matthew Morrell is returning. 14.5 points a game, 3.5 boards, 2.5 dimes. He can chip, he can dip, he can do a little bit of everything in 34 minutes. To steal my guy Eric the Blues phrase there. Word around the NBA is that he helped the stock a little bit, especially in the on-campus workouts. Don't know that he got a ton of buzz out and about at some of the combine stuff, but the athleticism just it jumps off the page. So returning now is going to be in that backcourt with Georgetown transfer Brandon Murray, Arizona State transfer Austin Nunez. You got to it hurts me every time I praise Chris Beard because they should have been doing that here in Austin. But nobody's really surprised at all that he found a way to immediately bring in these types of players and to keep them around as well out there at Ole Miss. 2 returning scorers coming back now with Morrell and Brakefield. Beard also got the top high school player out of Arkansas. We didn't even talk about Musa Cisse either in all of this. It's a talented roster. Ole Miss is going to be good, and Morrell is really going to play a big part of that. Speaking of playing a big part, and speaking of my guy Hubert Davis in North Carolina, some pretty big news here, Mike, and something that is becoming more and more common as we see some of these players reclassify and get on the campus a little bit earlier. We've seen it in football. We've seen it in basketball a little bit more. Elliott Cadaeu, who was in the class of 2024, has reclassified to 2023. What does this mean for North Carolina, man? Like, obviously, we talked about Caleb Love out, but is this in terms of overall, like when you look at a guy's talent and attributes, does Cadaeu fill in that gap that Caleb Love is leaving?
Wow. Well, this news was I think it's kind of out of left field. I don't know if you guys saw anything. I didn't really see anything about this. We knew he's super talented. I mean, he's a top 10 player, to your point, Jay. Like, this kind of changes a lot of options, or gives a lot of options to Hubert Davis, kind of changes the dynamic of what this team can be. And it's hard to say, right? Because, man, we've seen this, Devin Askew, Gigi Jackson. This doesn't always work out the way we think it's going to, but the one thing that you see is the kid is an elite passer and an elite playmaker, and he's physical. And I think that's the biggest thing. Gigi Jackson was a physical player. Devin Askew was a physical player. I just don't think that those Gigi Jackson's going to get drafted in the NBA this year, but I just don't know that either one of those guys was really as effective as they could be reclassifying, and that just comes with age and experience. But yeah, I mean, he's a top 10 player in the 24 class, and now he's shifting over to 23. So it's going to be interesting, Eric, man. Like, I love what Hubert Davis has done in the transfer portal. A lot of people don't agree with how he constructed it, but I think he needed to build this thing around, Armando Bacot, and he needed to be the one getting all the touches, and you kept RJ Davis. Everyone else is, gone, and you're bringing in a ton of transfers. So what are your thoughts, Eric, on, Coach Davis and how he's going to deploy Cadaeu and how he fits next to RJ Davis, man?
Yeah, I think the first thing to hit is the point that you made, that these reclassified freshmen need to be approached with caution, right? With that being said, I mean, I think Cadaeu is the type of player that can make an immediate impact. I mean, there's some people out there, arguing that he should potentially get the start from day one, right? He's a super versatile player. He gives Coach Davis a ton of flexibility. I think the argument for him starting early is really to do with his ability as a distributor and as a passer, right? Like, you talk about a UNC Tar Heels team that is as talented as it is. Yet again, you bring someone in that can facilitate, and they're going to be able to play a big and impactful role very quickly, right? So I think that's what the argument for it sounds like. On the other side, I mean, if nothing else, just personally, I was looking forward to seeing a bit more of RJ Davis with Caleb Love out of the way, right? And now if we're talking about Cadaeu coming in and taking over those ball handling duties, obviously that limits that to an extent. But at the end of the day, like, there is always going to be a place for a guy that can handle himself on the court and that is a willing passer, especially with a roster as talented as these Tar Heels. So wouldn't be surprised at all if he sees a lot of run very early.
Here's the deal. Hubert Davis can't afford to miss the tournament again. Period.
Yeah,
that's
fair.
And I don't know if that means you start Cadaeu from day one. There are some dangers behind that, obviously, right? But how does Hubert Davis approach this? Does it mean sitting Cadaeu and playing him sparingly and letting RJ Davis drive the bus? Okay, fine. But from just a pure basketball perspective, with the talent that he's bringing, he's going to get to see some run early on, especially in some non-conference games, to see if he's ready for the big time, to see if he's ready for the ACC. My question would be, was there some pressure here to reclassify early, to get on campus, and to immediately help this team? Like, and I know it's not something that you could just, snap your fingers and be reclassified. I'm curious to know if Hubert Davis got in this guy's ear, 6 months ago, a year ago, and was like, hey, like, if you can't make it happen, okay, but if you could get on campus, we're going to need you. And I don't know. I'm curious to see if some of that stuff comes out, if Davis forces him to play, or if he's forced to play him because they're not playing well and it doesn't work out, we could see the Tar Heels fall short of this tournament again. For me, we talked about Askew earlier. To make a football comparison, this is not Quinn Ewers reclassifying and going to Ohio State to try to play quarterback a year early and learn the game. Like, Cadaeu his game is going to translate to the college level. So I know he can play. I expect him to contribute from day one. But if Hubert Davis and this North Carolina staff fumbles this opportunity with this sort of talent again, I just don't see he's not long for this job. Alumni or not, he's not. He can't miss the tournament again this year. Plenty of shooters as well, Mike. But I put a ball on this North Carolina situation for me, Mike. Like, how do you think this is going to go down?
Yeah, and I would like to get Eric's point here in just a second about the reclassification deal, if you thought there was anything happening. But from a roster perspective, I'm higher than a lot of people are on. I think Davis knows that you have to play through Baycott. Like that. Remember last year, guys, we were just talking about like what are we doing here? Like Davis and Love are taking all the shots. Like even Leaky Black at one point was like the number one option, taking the last shot. And you're like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
It feels like Hubert Davis with his NBA background, right? And identified and said, hey, we can't do this. We need to create space for Baycott and RJ Davis. Love's out of here. We're going to put shooters like Cormac Ryan, Paxton Wojcik. We're going to go out and get a 4-man, like 3-4-man like Harrison Ingram, who is a great passer, can shoot a little bit, and just does all kinds of things on the floor to play him next to Baycott, not clog up the lane. The great thing about that team a couple of years ago was Brady Manick's ability to shoot the three. Nance last year had some trouble staying healthy and just wasn't quite the player that Brady Manick was. And that was a tough role to fill. I mean, Brady Manick was one of the greatest transfers. We've seen in college basketball history what he did for that team last year. And, yeah, I like what he's done. Jalen Withers is also a really good athlete. So there's a lot of talent coming to North Carolina. It's not guys other than Ingram that are going to be like, oh, my God. But Ryan and Wojcik can really shoot. And that's one thing that North Carolina did 2 years ago that they didn't do well last year was shoot the three. And if you have three-ball spacing around Baycott, that just makes you – I think, Jay, you said the other day, like, how do you miss the tournament with Baycott? Well, you don't feed him the ball and you shoot, in the mid-200s and three-point percentage after you shot the top 100 the year before. So, Eric, I don't know. I think it's more of this kid wanting to get to the pros sooner, I would assume. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the reclassification, just everything else Jay kind of brought up?
Yeah, I mean, that would be my guess, right? There are so many, backroom dealings and, side conversations happening. Like, there's no way that we can really know for sure. But generally speaking, with players that are this highly coveted and this highly recruited, they're looking for the fastest path to the NBA draft and specifically the draft lottery, right? So you think about a guy, he's probably looking at the would-be class heading in for for next year's NBA draft, feeling like he's in a decent position. But also, I mean, we talk about it all the time as we get into March. Like, there are plenty of times where, a hot tournament run can really impact a guy's NBA stock. And I'm right there with you, Mike. Like, I'm equally bullish on what Hubert Davis has done in terms of team building this offseason. This is a team that, if everything clicks, should be poised for a deep tournament run. And if Cadaeu's, not only making an impact on that, but he is the one that is facilitating all of that, the majority of their scoring and their offense. This could be the opportunity for him to really raise his platform as high as possible so that he is a lock lottery pick, if not a very early lottery pick in the 24 class.
We're going to find out pretty quickly if just how much addition by subtraction Caleb Love is, that situation means to this North Carolina team. It's tough because I did say that, I think it was last show, Mike, like, how do you miss the tournament with the talent that was on that roster, especially Armando Bacot? I have no idea how that happened. It can happen again, though. And I think that they have to win a tournament game this season, at least one, for this to even be considered a remote success in Chapel Hill. They've got to win a tournament game this year. So looking forward to seeing if Cadaeu can step in. It's a tall order for a guy that young to go into the ACC and just be the general. But, we'll see if it can happen, if Davis can switch the game plan around and can really go through Bacot and play more of that inside out, like we talked about Arizona playing a little bit more. We'll see how it goes. But RJ Davis is going to have to be that dude as well. Bacot is Bacot. We'll see how it goes for sure. All right, hey, let's put a wrap on it, man. Let's just one and done, baby. This is it. You've been watching it. We appreciate y'all for hanging out with us. Real quick, 30 seconds, Mike. Put a bow.
A bow in 30 seconds. I can't do that, Jay. Stick with us. This was a fun show. Glad our guy Eric's back. We're gonna talk about East Coast of basketball coming up pretty soon. Don't know if we have a date locked in for that, but like and subscribe, guys. We're doing this content. I can't believe it's we're just now getting into June. Just looking forward to all the things we got coming. Eric, what say you to end this show?
Man, heading out east, we're going two-parter for our recruiting tour on the East Coast because 95% of all colleges are east of the Mississippi. So going to break it up into two parts, but definitely enjoyed talking about some of these teams in Middle America, enjoyed producing and watching the West Coast Part 1. Go back and check out that one if you haven't already. And like Mike said, make sure you are locked here. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you have that notification bell on because we are pushing out this recruiting content. Probably going to sprinkle in a little bit of NBA draft coverage. Definitely keeping the coaching conversations coming. So trying to keep you locked and ready for a offseason that flies by faster every single year.
You know it, fellas. Hey, it's good to have the three-man booth back. He is Eric the Blue at Fantasy Nav on Twitter, the Baron of Bread for Green Screens Media, Eric Romoff. This other cat over here is El Capitan, the captain of the Green Screens Media ship, the OG Money Mike Holland. I am Jay Heinrich at Dr. William Cannon on Twitter. Astros are winning again. Make sure you follow me to retweet every time Altuve goes yard. Jose Abreu finally hit a home run. Astros are red hot. And so is one and done, baby. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a nice day. Let's get this bread.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drrodo.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.